This is a bookball summary of the book We Need to Talk by Celeste Headlee. We all engage in conversation with others on a variety of topics, thanks to modern technology that made everyone more connected than ever before. Even though staying in touch has become easier, the quality of our conversation has decreased and the ability to relate with others is diminishing. Anyway, it's understandable that having good conversation is difficult. You'll discover how talking to others can help you get to know them more, and the benefits of putting an effort in a conversation. Number 1. Good communication is fundamental to being human, but modern life has set us up with some bad habits. Our capacity for communication is one of the reasons why humans have prevailed over other creatures. We make up for our lack of physical strength by being able to converse and listen in great detail to each other. Surprisingly, we don't make more effort to communicate. People have been communicating with each other since the beginning of time, but examples from this present era demonstrate why mastering effective communication is worthwhile. Poor communication is expensive. According to a 2008 report, the effect on large organisations in the US and UK may be as high as $37 billion annually. Another research shows that college students in 2010 exhibited 40% less empathy than students from 30 years earlier. The development of technology and social media which promotes transient superficial connection rather than empathy is unquestionably a major factor in this. What can you do in this regard? You need to start taking communication skills more seriously. If you can take the initiative to create an engaging conversation yourself, you'll be so delighted by the result. Number 2. Look for common ground and you'll find you can take on even the toughest conversations. Do you avoid having challenging conversations? Lots of people do. However, sometimes discussions that seem impossible to have can go quite smoothly. Consider the story of Zenona Clayton, who was born in the 1930s and was a participant in the US civil rights struggle. She also served as a head of a city planning program in Atlanta, Georgia, where Calvin Craig, a well-known Ku Klux Klan member, was one of her co-workers. Craig eventually quit the KKK in 1968, and he specifically credits their friendship for leading to this conversion. Speaking without bias is challenging, but the case of Clayton and Craig shows that there is always something to talk about even with those who have opposite opinions. It's crucial to be respectful to everyone you speak with and actively engage in conversations. Try to understand the other person's perspective while you listen to what they have to say. Calvin Craig was convinced by Zenona Clayton to change his mind, not by coercive means, but rather by being a lively conversation. Disagreement is okay. Not every talk has to result in an emotional reconciliation and a lifelong friendship, but you must pay attention. Number 3. Don't assume you know what other people are going through. The author is a host of a radio program where a lot of people are being interviewed, but she also often slips up during conversations. For instance, a friend turned to her for solace after losing her father. The author responded to her by sharing her own experience of how she lost her father when she was 9 months. Her response made her friend annoyed. She thought of it and discovered she had focused the conversation on herself rather than her friend. Many of us often do this unconsciously. Charles Derber, a sociologist, refers to it as conversational narcissism. Derber noted that there are 2 responses in a conversation: the shift response and the support response. Simply replying "me too" is a shift response, because it shifts the focus away from the other person toward yourself. It's normal to project your own experiences onto other people, but the issue is that sometimes your life doesn't correlate to someone else's life. Having a different knowledge base from other people is likewise okay, but we often don't act as if we understand what someone is talking about when we don't have an idea. Simply admitting your ignorance is a good first step in developing trust. Number 4. You can get people to talk by asking open-ended questions, but the true power lies in listening to what they say. Choosing the right questions to ask is one of the best things you can do to get a friend or co-worker to open up in conversation. Using one of these 6 concise words, who, what, where, when, why, or how, is the most effective method to prompt a detailed reply. You can also lead a conversation interestingly by pausing for a moment to organise your thoughts. Another thing you should watch out for is wool gathering, which involves allowing your mind to wander and deviate from what the other person is saying. Listening genuinely is rare. Even when you want to engage, you often end up just acquiring information. For instance, when you're considering your next reply while the other person is speaking. If you do that, you're no longer paying attention. It's better to concentrate on what is being said presently and let the conversation flow naturally. If you can give your attention during your conversations, you'll discover you stop wool gathering and you're asking the best and most intriguing open-ended questions. Number 5. Listening is an active, not a passive skill. Recent scientific research examined the neural processes involved when people speak about themselves. It made an interesting discovery that talking about yourself activates the same brain region as when eating sugar, using cocaine, or engaging in sexual activity. It appears that talking about oneself is a very enjoyable experience. However, listening is not that effective. If you believe listening involves not talking for a while, you're wrong. But the good part is that it's a skill that can be learned. Many people don't listen actively by nature, but you can improve through practice. The first thing you should realise is that humans don't use words to communicate. Gestures and speech tone have a lot of meaning. Another method is to focus on what the other person would say in a conversation rather than worrying about what you will say next. You can also focus your attention by trying to summarise what they're saying in your brain. It takes effort to listen to others, which is harder than it sounds. Number 6. When you're talking, be sensitive to the listener. Listening is one half of any conversation. You will certainly have to talk at some time, even if you are paying close attention to what the other person is saying. How do you ensure that your contributions are beneficial in a conversation? Consider how you sound to your listeners by putting yourself in their position. These 3 tips can be useful. First, be brief. Second, don't repeat yourself. And third, stay away from shaggy dogs. We'll get to that one in a minute. There is a valid explanation for these tips. We have a short attention period. If you talk for a long time, people will lose interest. You should consider conversation as a game of catch. There is no use in throwing the ball if your partner isn't ready to catch it. Likewise, do not believe repeating the same point will enhance its retention. According to research, while repetition aids the speaker's memory, it does not affect listener retention. Last but not least, avoid telling shaggy dog stories, in which you exaggerate every detail to the point where the audience loses track of the narrative. It's a common misconception that providing extensive information can help someone recall what you want them to remember. But in reality, doing so is distracting. Number 7. Having good conversations is hard work, but getting them right benefits everybody. It requires effort to have a truly rewarding conversation, so if you're not in the appropriate state of mind, it's sometimes preferable to avoid conversation than to engage in it unprepared. However, why is conversation beneficial to you in the first place? In a word, empathy. Empathy is reportedly declining among young people, which is a serious issue. Empathy enables us to connect with others in a meaningful way by helping us comprehend their emotions. There are several benefits of empathizing with others and placing your attention on them rather than just on yourself. For instance, volunteering for charitable causes can improve your happiness and health. The advantage empathy offers for the person you're speaking to are obvious as well, because a good conversation is about more than just you. What's your most important key takeaway? Please comment down below and share the video if you like it. Check out these other 2 videos. Thank you, and until next time.